Welcome to If I Only Had 10 Minutes. I'm Jane Randall, one of the partners in Comp Collective, and I'm thrilled to be here with Christine Heenan. Christine, can you tell everybody about yourself?
Sure, Jane, it's so great to be with you, one of the all-time greats in this field. I'm Christine Heenan. I serve as executive partner at a biotech venture company called Flagship Pioneering and founded and helped run a consulting agency called Clarendon Group.
And that's like a smidgen of your accomplishments, we'll just say. And I was going to start by saying you're one of my favorite people in the world, which is so mean to my other guests, but it's true.
Well, only because we weathered those early COVID days
We
together.
did.
You
We
gave
did.
me my caution and I gave you your
It
optimism.
was
So
awesome. It
we
was
were
great.
bonded through COVID.
Why do you
Sure.
think some companies hesitate to embrace AI tools in their comms functions? What do you think that is?
I actually think that in general, there are functions that are viewed as more engineering, design, computational, budgeting, analytics, coding, and functions that are viewed as more artisanal
Oh, interesting.
and creative, communications, brand, reputation being among them. And, as someone who's still, I think, in very early innings in using these tools well myself, when you see people use these optimally for communications,
Yeah.
you're like blown away. And it all has to do with the prompts. I have a friend who runs a communications agency. She had a museum client, and she was having to do a speech on the historic importance of this museum. And she first asked, I forget what her AI tool was. Maybe let's say it was Claude. Write me a speech in the voice of Tina Brown about this museum.
Oh my gosh.
Then
Okay.
she said, write me a speech in the voice of Anthony Bourdain about this museum. And then she compared the two and said, if Anthony Bourdain and Tina Brown had a baby, write me. And I was like, who thinks of that? But then like she
Wow.
got like the snappy, erudite, and she worked her way toward this tool, finding a voice and a tone that she was casting about but knew she wanted. It was just, to me, it really made me double down on my own thinking of I am not being creative enough
Right.
about using these tools or in my prompts.
Right.
So
No,
it's like up there with drink more water on a 2026 goal. So
fractional work, when we first started, no one knew what it was. And now everyone on LinkedIn, you notice they'll say do it fractional. And so it's gone from niche to normal. How do you see this shift changing the communications industry?
I had an early background in politics, and there's a phrase in politics when people would shorthand someone, they'd say Jane Randall's going to come in. She's a grown up, and like it didn't mean you're 38 years old or whatever you
Right.
are. It
Right.
meant been there, done that, judgment, execution, manage people. It was just shorthand
Yeah.
for they don't need a lot of handholding. They can come in and add value and make decisions for the organization, or in this case, a campaign, immediately. And I think fractional as like we're shipping in a grown up for a
Right.
period of time, right? Either while we figure out what the role is, or while someone's on leave, or while we're doing a search so we don't have a gun to our head, whatever reason. And I think communicators, in many ways, more than many functions, are used to really having to get the facts on the ground under their belt quickly
Mhm.
and then begin adding value. And I was thinking about that in preparation for our conversation about the ability to walk in and say, well, who's our audience for this? And what did we say to
Right.
them last? And all the necessary questions. Then I thought it's equally true in law, right? I'm in, the venture industry. A deal term sheet, like a smart lawyer, our general counsel, if she dropped in to
Right.
an
Right.
organization, she's seen so many term sheets. She'd know what she was looking at,
Right.
whether it was a tech company or a biotech company or a real estate company. A CFO, a P&L is a P&L,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Sure.
they know what they're looking at. So to me, fractional is about buying a grown up on the cheap.
If you had to teach a master class on something completely unrelated to work, what would it be?
So this was such a fun question to think about. It would be operating a zero waste kitchen. And I'm going to send this podcast when you air it to my friend Pam because she's going to laugh out loud. She and I share this like Irish potato famine genetic encoding that we think like, oh, there's this piece of fish from 2 days ago we have to have for dinner tonight, even if we don't want it because it's going to go bad. And there's this terrific cookbook I bought for she and I a couple of years ago called Perfectly Good Food.
Mhm.
And it's all about like, don't throw away those ends of the celery and the onions, can make a vegetable stock. And freeze your stuff in these in ice cube things so you can just use what you need. And I love the like Rubik's Cube of what's in the refrigerator, what's in the pantry, how can you whip up something delicious that uses things you already have and makes use of things that will otherwise perish. And it's a funny skill, you know, it's a funny sense of that compels me to do it, but I'm a big believer in a zero waste kitchen. So I would love to teach a master class on that. How you can have
I
excellent
love that.
food, really eat great things.
I mean, you're an amazing communicator, so I'm curious to hear who you say. Who do you think is the best communicator you've ever seen in action, and why do you think that's true?
Bill Clinton. I had the opportunity to work for President Clinton. I was very young, 24 when I started working at the White House, 26 when I left. And I saw him in many, many settings. I saw him talk to, you know, very sophisticated, we're doing a lot of work on healthcare reform at the
Hmm.
time. So
Yeah,
sophisticated audiences of healthcare economists around, you know, the the effect of demand on healthcare availability and very, you know, econometric conversations. And I saw him talking to normal people saying, look, I get why you don't trust your government to run your healthcare. You think government could screw up a one-car parade.
right.
And like, you know, I think of a lot of people in politics who came before him or came after him who wouldn't be able to have a conversation with certain audiences without them feeling like they were being talked down to.
Right, right,
And what always struck me about President Clinton is, you know, John Lewis was the same way. He had such an inherent respect
hmm,
for his audience, whoever his audience was. He valued the lives and perspectives
right,
of guys who'd just gotten off a shift working as longshoremen all day, that he considered it his responsibility to connect with them in a language and with an ability that would make sense to them and would make their dialogue meaningful in both directions.
mm,
I
interesting.
think respecting your audience and speaking to them from a place of, and you know, every profession does it. Teachers who sit there and at a parent teacher conference and lecture from a place of
Right,
their, you know, language that you're thinking, is that really what a parent, are they following what you're saying? Is your job to make them understand or to suggest that there's a barrier, that you're the professional, you're the
right,
expert?
right.
Certainly in healthcare, other sectors I've been in. And so to me, the stripping away of jargon and not relying on language to create a barrier or a sense of power dynamic, but rather as a sense of connection and respect. No one I've encountered does that like Bill Clinton.
I can see that. It comes from a place of insecurity, the other, not Bill
I think
Clinton,
so.
right?
Yeah.
You know, it's that need to be the smartest person in
That
the room.
there's, yeah, or a sense that, or it's just a sense of snobbery or of there's certain people who are at my level.
One other question and then our signature, because I'm really curious to see what you're going to say. What is the funniest misunderstanding you've encountered at work?
So I worked at Brown University immediately after the White House, and my purview included government relations, community relations, and communications. And as part of community relations, it had to do with the surrounding community and the area of Providence. Many people now tragically are more familiar with that area after the shooting at Brown, called Thayer Street in that area. And then dealing with planning and zoning and all the things, right down to like neighbors who are mad with stray lacrosse balls going into their yard, athletic fields. And the CFO of the university called me and said, "You've got to go to this, you know, zoning hearing on Thursday. Someone's trying to put a topless bar on Thayer Street." And it was so out of character with this college town. I'm like,
What?
you just can't really picture the topless bar and the pole and
Yeah,
everything. And I had young kids, so I had to get a babysitter. My husband's away, get a babysitter. But I go there armed, you know, ready to say Brown University does not support the idea of a topless bar. And next up is the application for a tapas
not this bar.
bar.
Oh,
I was like, mm, tapas. I could be home in my pajamas right now.
like, I love
So
tapas. Like, tapas is
pretty good. Yeah, tapas are okay. We're okay with tapas. So that was a pretty good
that's a
work on
riot.
workplace understanding.
That's really, I love that. That's awesome. Okay, last question. If you had an extra 10 minutes in your day, what would you do with it?
So we've already established I would drink more water and be practicing on my use of AI tools. But I thought about it. I'd like to say it would be exercise, but you know, I have enough handle on my time now that I think I would, if you said to me, here's the deal, I'm going to hand you 10 minutes in your added day, but you're going to have to commit to how you use it and use it that way consistently. I think I would commit to using it to meditate. I've never been a successful meditator. It's not, I swim and that's sort of my closest I get to
Yeah.
meditation. But really saying you've got this gift of 10 minutes. You're not going to be late to a next thing, or you're not going
Right.
to get up 10 minutes early. Figure out these tools. Just try with the breathing, maybe listen to a guided meditation. People who I know who meditate so swear by it
I know.
that I would take my 10 minutes a day that you are gifting me, Jane Randall, and I would use it to practice the art of meditation.
That's beautiful. Christine, thank you so much for your time. You're so busy, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me and everybody who's listening.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for having me. It was a lot of fun.